Okay, we're still not live.
It says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube
Yeah,
on the screen.
Up here, yeah. Okay, we're still not live.
Oh, there's that much delay.
30 seconds. Yep, it's good. We're live.
RJ she just texted me saying, I'm making sure you can see me. And I can't. Sean.
Just a second.
I see her. Well, I see her emoji thing.
And Sean's in.
Hi, Sean.
Eric,
Hello. Cute background.
Okay. Here we are. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Veronica.
Ms. Casbon Latourette,
Here.
Mr. Coleman, Mr. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Wuziak,
Here.
Ms. Ide,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Ms. Ori,
I think she's muted.
he's muted.
Here. Okay. Always say let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, hang on just a second. Get the flag going for us.
Flag, virtual flag.
We will get a flag.
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
that. Okay, now we're on to public comment, and I'd like to let the protocol for hearing public comments is that we listen to you. We take what you say very seriously. However, in the format of the meeting, we don't respond to you directly. We allow our the people who would be the best to answer your question follow up in the days afterward. So I'm going to read the public comments that came into us. The first is from Adriana Malinowski. My name is Adriana Malinowski. My daughter is a 6th grade student at Millburn Middle School. I have a question regarding the learning experience that the school has been providing amid the COVID-19 quarantine. This is the 5th week since the school has transitioned to remote learning, and so far, all the school has offered is self-education programs for students to complete independently in their own time. Is there a plan to implement a more structured learning experience utilizing Zoom to help the students organize their day? For example, having virtual classes from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. could substitute at least a portion of the regular school day, allowing kids to interact with their teachers and friends. This would not only help the kids with learning, but it would also ensure their emotional well-being in these difficult times. Based on the feedback from Dr. Lin, technology is not a limiting factor for starting virtual classes, so what needs to be done to begin online learning immediately? Is there anything parents can do to help ensure that virtual classes are offered as soon as possible? Thank you, Adriana, for your comments. We will consider them carefully. Thank you. The next one is from the Keys family. Thank you to all the Millburn teachers, staff, and board for all you are doing to keep our students engaged and to serve our community. Thank you. The next comment is from Mark Cicero. What is the plan to reopen the school for in-person classes this school year? Although well-intentioned and teachers and staff are doing the best they can, I do not see the current remote learning as a substitute for in-person instruction. There is going to be a large variance in the amount of learning that students will actually receive via distance learning due to their family situation. Will classes resume this school year and extend into the summer? If classes are not able to resume in person this summer, will next school year start early to make up for the lost instruction this school year? Will next school year start as scheduled, but start off with makeup time for this school year and then extend schools further into the summer? It would be a disservice to the students to basically cut this school year short and move on to the next school year with the expectation that the students will know all of what they were supposed to have learned from this school year. Thank you, Mark. And then there's one more. If I can get it. It was late arriving. From Tanya Runyon. And she writes, I wanted to write and share my appreciation about how much we have enjoyed the Millburn Middle School e-learning experience. Our son loved phase 1 so much, he was literally skipping around the house with joy and showing us his creations and discoveries. Now phase 2 is underway and the reality of long-time e-learning has sunk in a little bit. He needs more direction, as he always does. However, the instructors have been excellent with getting in touch with Samuel and me to keep us informed. Samuel's tech, ELA, math, and choir teachers have all taken the initiative to contact me, along with Mr. Lacey, who has done check-ins with him for the past few months. When there was a concern with some of Samuel's activity on his iPad, Mr. Jorgensen contacted me right away to express his concern and make sure I was aware of the situation. Millburn has not stopped for a second, even with all the stresses and unknowns of COVID-19. We feel very much supported. Thank you so much for taking e-learning seriously and continuing to give our kids the best quality education. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate your comments. I appreciate everyone's comments. Again, we will think of them carefully and we will respond in due time. On to I didn't receive any additional information or discussion items. So we're on to 6, which is presentation, which we don't have, right?
Correct.
Okay. So then we're on to number 7, information discussion, the pandemic plan. Jason.
Okay, so I will talk a little bit about what we have done and what we're doing. We keep in mind that we started with our pandemic planning back on March 4th, our first meeting, which seems like an eternity ago, and many things have changed since then. So we're still planning, but I want to talk about the several different phases and what our priorities have been during that time. First was the safety of our students. That's why we closed school. We listened to the governor. We are doing what we are being told to do by the specialists who are monitoring this situation. So safety first. Within the first week of closure, actually by Thursday, we were delivering meals to students. They could either grab and come to school and pick them up, or we would deliver them to their house if they weren't able to get a ride or get to school. So we've been doing that for several weeks now and all the way through spring break without any interruption in service. So we're providing food for students, and we've also packed about 5,000 pounds of food for the families as well that they can pick up if they so choose to help offset some of the cost, because we know there are people who have significant needs in this time who are, people are losing their job. They're suddenly out of work and with no remedy, and anything we can do to help is great. Our parents, our community has been wonderful as well, with our teachers raising over $1,000 almost immediately after we had set the word out that we were going to be doing this. And then our parents and community raised another $3,000. So we've raised over $4,000 already. And we have money if we need to replenish our grocery supply and support people. And I'm anticipating as we go through this that we will be providing more support down the road as this extends longer. We just don't know. So we have that money, and I'm proud of our community for doing that and reaching out to meet the needs of our families. Emotional care. I know our social workers, as soon as school was closed down, reached out to students that and teachers as well, who they felt might be at greater risk or they had concerns about emotionally, and have been working with them throughout this. And then finally, our learning. And now we're in day 6 of our remote learning plan. The remote learning plan started officially on April the 8th, I believe it was. Or was it the 7th? Whatever Monday that was. It's hard to keep track of days. But on March 27th, the state released the guidelines for what remote learning would do, or what it would look like for the state, and what the parameters were for operating under. And we have been following those guidelines. That was the Friday of the last Friday of spring break. So that following Monday, the administration met. We were looking over that over the weekend, of course, to get a handle on it. It's 62 pages of guidance. And then Monday we met to start to determine a plan, and we met with different groups that day. So then Tuesday met with teachers and explained what our expectations were, how we were going to roll that out. And then by that Thursday at noon, the teachers had to come up with the next week's learning plan. So they had to come up with the lesson plans for the whole following week. And we decided we wanted to put them out a week at a time to give parents an opportunity to have more flexibility. So if they didn't get to it one day, they didn't get overwhelmed, they could pick and choose. And we don't want to go any longer than a week. Like when we first started, we had 9 days of instruction that was less structured. And that was guidance from the state based on their recommendations of just keep the kids busy doing something during that time. And some of that time was over spring break. So I know it felt like a long time for parents. For us at school, it didn't feel so long. It went by pretty quick, and we were working pretty hard during that time, just doing some of the other background work. So the teachers got busy, and then by Thursday at noon, they posted a full week's worth of instruction, and that's what we did last week. So we had 5 days of instruction. Then we asked them by Thursday at noon last week to post the current week's instruction. So we're on week 2 of the official remote learning plan. That's the learning piece. The next piece, as one of the comments pointed out, we have already been talking about what happens when kids come back to school, whether if it's this year or next year in the fall. What does that look like, and how do we support kids, and what do we do to catch them up? So we're having those discussions. I don't anticipate that it's going to look like extending school to 200 days, for example, next year. That would be quite expensive for the school district. For example, it's over $60,000 per day for instructional days when we're in school is how much we spend. And so if you think about a 10-day expansion, if we were able to negotiate with our unions, and if we were able to come to some sort of agreement, would cost us about $600,000 just for the 10 days of an extension. And I don't believe that's going to be in the budget, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So, but we have talked about different ideas for kids who are not engaged as much or don't have the support at home. We want them to get the learning in. They must do the learning. And so we will do whatever we can to catch them up. It could be extending the school day by a little bit. It could be, we've talked about the possibility of a jump start in August for some kids, for a targeted group of children. Just different ideas that we bantered around. We have, from the federal government, from the CARES Act, we will be getting $50,000 to offset some of those costs. But $50,000 would not even get us 1 day of learning for every student. So we're going to have to be judicious with how we designate our resources with that. But right now we're just kind of trying to improve our current learning and get that down to a science and get that off to a good start. That's our number one priority at the moment. Then we'll start talking about next year and beyond. So that's our pandemic preparedness. We've worked with local law enforcement, talked to them if there was any needs. Everything seems to be pretty quiet. Some school districts are being asked, of course, to be ready to be an extended hospital situation. We are not one of those districts. The hospitals in our area are able to handle so far any surge. So we've not been asked to do that, which it makes things a little bit easier. Nor do I think we would be. I think that's more, they're looking at high school facilities. They're a little better equipped for the parking and different options there. It's been interesting to see all the different responses and feedback that we've gotten. It's been a wide range. We have contacted every student, I believe, as of today. I haven't gotten a report back on every single one yet, but there were 3 today at the elementary that we hadn't contacted or that hadn't gotten back to us. We've tried to contact and reach out in various ways, and finally got some responses today. So I think that's great. Was last week's priority. I said, we want to make sure every student is safe and that everyone knows where to go for the learning. Everybody has the equipment that they need, and we can move on from there.
Okay.
That's where we're at with that.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Dr. Lind about anything? Jason, could you please let people know the process by which the teachers decided what content needed to be given out or covered and what could fall by the wayside?
Sure.
Through a methodical process.
Sure. We asked them to lay out what they absolutely needed to get done for the rest of this year with skills for kids. What was the bare minimum that kids would need to know by the end of this year, and start there. Hopefully we can get beyond that, but that's our biggest priority, is to make sure that a 2nd grade student gets what they need to move on into 3rd grade, because our 3rd grade teachers then will have to catch up and fill in any gaps that students miss. So that whatever we can do to help that next level be more successful, that's what we're going to do first. And it's state standards. It's what the kids need to know at this grade level for our state standards. And there's different classes. Middle school is a totally different animal than elementary school in so many ways. But with learning, there's a different priority with an 8th grade student than there might be with a kindergarten student. We'll have more time to catch up a kindergarten student over the years and fill in those gaps. With 8th grade, if they're in an Algebra 1 course, they need to get through that book. So they've been on a little bit more pressure. I don't know if the kids are necessarily feeling it yet, all of them, but the teachers are definitely feeling that pressure to get those kids ready for high school. And every school district around here is in the same boat. So the high school superintendents, we are talking about what are some possibilities, but they're saying, listen, can you let us get through these first couple of weeks and get our feet under us, because they're scrambling too, and they've got all kinds of issues with sports and graduations. They're a little bit more complex, but it impacts their scheduling for next year, depending on what section they go in, staffing, all of that.
So it's my understanding that every child now has an iPad and knows how to connect to learning?
Every child has been connected. I think there might be 1 or 2 iPads that haven't been picked up. But that doesn't mean the kids don't have them. It just means they're not using their school issued iPad. They could have one at home, their own, or using their parents' computer. I know some kids the first week were using cell phones, which is tough. That's pretty tough to complete assignments on a cell phone, but they were giving it an effort.
Does anybody have further questions? Okay. On to staffing requests for 2020, 2021.
So we've been talking about the staffing for a while now. My recommendation, I'm going to put up what we've been talking about just as a reminder. My recommendation is to hold off and not vote on this next month or this month and wait till next month, just because we're in such a flux right now financially and enrollment wise. We don't know. My projections are based on what has happened historically in our district. But if the housing market continues to be, mute pretty much, and everybody's pretty much stay put, I don't know how much that's going to change next year. So we may have to bring those models down a little bit. Let me see if I can display what I'm talking about. Okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Can you still see it?
yes.
Okay. My computer's doing some goofy things right now, so. So we talked about a $50,000 tax abatement, which we did. 2 additional class sizes or 2 additional teachers to maintain class size, and a half additional FTE for English language learners, which we are still maybe recommending all of this. I just want to make sure that we're going to be okay financially and have the means and also the need there. So we're holding off on these additions.
Are most districts doing that?
Yes. I think in general, actually a couple districts are doing some reductions. But in general, I think people are kind of just in a wait and see holding pattern.
Is there any indication what we might expect from the state as far as funding?
That there's been rumors that there's I shared the COGFA, and I was going to mention this later too. COGFA is the state budget accountability group that runs numbers, and they've already run numbers on what's possibly the impact on Illinois for the coronavirus pandemic. And they're looking at a 20% drop in state funding. That doesn't mean we're not going to get 20% of our funds next year, state funds. Last time that happened, it didn't work out that way, and it's kind of spread over multiple years. But if that happens, and if that's the worst case scenario, if it hits that number, I think they're going to be looking to make some cuts somewhere. It may not be in the evidence-based funding because that's statutory at this point. And it won't be a proration like it was last time, which is great. I think they'll look at doing other things. I suggested last time that a cost shift might be pension cost shift might be one way to do kind of a proration. It takes the pressure off the state coffers to pay for the pensions, and pushes it back on the school district, so it would relieve them, but still it hits everybody equally instead of some districts higher than others. But who knows?
So Jason, the 20% projected reduction, is that just for education or is that across the entire state budget?
State revenue.
Okay.
Good question. That's big. That's a problem.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not saying that to
My
scare.
internet is a little strange, guys.
I'm sorry.
No, my internet is a little odd right now. I would think my bandwidth may be stressed out. So if I'm behind.
Okay, it's coming through okay now. Yeah, that's we're looking at a recession, I'm assuming and presuming, unless this ends quicker than what we anticipate, but it's could be a big hit. So we just don't know. And it might not be next year, it could be the year after that we have more of a hit with schools, depending on timing and everything else. Just something to keep in mind. There's also, Steve and I have been sharing documents too, and information about property taxes and delays in property taxes. And the county's been asked to waive any late penalties, which disincentivizes people to pay on time, which sounds great. And it is great for taxpayers and wonderful, but that also has an impact down the line for all our municipalities and schools. So we're okay if they delay it, but it could be a problem if that continues, especially if we miss that fall payment. If we're delayed in the fall, we'll probably look at least look into TAWs to get us through till the following year. But we won't know that. That's totally preliminary. And we will get the money eventually. So it's just for a cash flow. So there's a lot up in the air right now. That's why my recommendation is to hold. And I want to have a real close look at the enrollments, because the whole purpose of asking for 2 more teachers was because the enrollment trends were higher class size, and I could show that quick too. Let me share the class size of 2 different scenarios. Ooh, that's weird. So in one scenario, we have the current enrollment here.
I'm not able to see the document. It's the white bar.
How about now?
There you go.
Good? All right. Thanks, Stephen. So we have our projected enrollment for next year. This is our current enrollment over here. Our projected enrollment with the increase would be, our class size would look like this. 18, 20, 19, and then jump up in 3rd grade to 25-ish, 5th grade 24, 4th grade 24, 5th grade 27.4, almost 28, 6th grade 25, 24, and 29, almost 28.3, almost 29 in 8th grade. That's based on our first projections. If we add 2 teachers, if we leave it status quo, those class sizes in 1st grade are up to 25, and in 6th grade close to 30, almost over 29. So that was based on our original projection, and I want to make sure that's holding true now that when we start to get our registrations in and see what kindergarten does and see what other grades are doing. We'll see if we need to adjust that.
Anybody have further questions on the staffing requests? The staffing freeze, I guess. Anyone? Okay. On to the policy that we wanted to discuss further, the 510 equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment policy.
Okay, I'm gonna put that up too, if I can. This one might be really small on your screen, so hang on. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, I think our question was on item number 22. No one will be penalized solely for his or her participation, or I'm sorry. No one will be penalized solely for his or her status as a registered qualifying patient or a registered designated caregiver for the purposes of the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act. Was that the question that we had last time? I believe it was. How is that? Does that conflict with other policies?
That actually is just one of the two regarding the use of lawful, or the lawful use of products, use of lawful products, sorry. So that was listed separately in that IASB policy.
What was the other issue with this? You remember?
Is it possible to pull up 510 in IASB, the press?
This is
it.
This is all the footnotes, right? This is all the footnotes, but the actual body.
No, I was reading the body. The footnotes then are down here. For 22, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see 22.
So 22 in this area corresponds with the 22 up here. This is the actual body of the policy right here. It's not neat because it's got the footnotes embedded. So the bigger font is the policy and the smaller font are the footnotes. I thought it would be easier than flipping back and forth on this.
Did we check with Cindy on this, Jason?
I did not. So was that what our
I feel like I remember, Sean, there being one that was slightly different that was about
That's correct. It said use of lawful products while not at work. So it wasn't just restricted to this.
and we had the question of whether, bus drivers would count for that or
Well, bus drivers are other personnel.
who are
Bus drivers are other personnel, but I think we determined that the bus drivers were not included in that.
correct?
okay.
Yeah, it states that they're under a separate requirement, and it states that in the notes here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Where was that? I can't remember where that was. That was a different policy then, Sean?
I was just looking at 510 on press. So for some reason, that's looking different to me. So some of the key things that we discussed last time, or I pointed out last time, were arrest record, unfavorable military discharge, use of lawful products while not at work,
Do we want to table this until Jason is able to speak to the lawyer?
Yeah, I think the takeaway was to have the lawyer take a second look at it.
Right, but I wanted to be sure that I got what I wanted her to look at, correct, before I do, because that'll cost some dollars, so.
I think we're talking about footnote 11 around there.
Yes, that's correct. If we look at the press, at press, it's 11, use of lawful products while not at work. And then again, I think too, just a general question, do we want a policy that says we bar ourselves from using these things as part of the decision-making process in hiring? Or do we simply strike some things out to give us some latitude here, as we have with other policies?
I think that this paragraph, from what I understand, is based on state law. I don't know that it's lawful to list it to put it any other way. That's kind of why I wanted Cindy to weigh in on this. And I think we should table it until we can discuss it with her information.
Right, but I need to know what I'm asking her exactly, and I'm a little bit confused. So, and I'm sorry that I'm just trying to nail it down. Under use of lawful products while at work, which would be footnote 12, which would refer to footnote 12, the Right to Privacy in the Workplace Act prohibits discrimination based on the use of lawful products. Example, alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco off premises during non-working hours. So I'm asking her if we can strike that.
I think that's not the question. It's the question whether this is set in stone or not from a legal standpoint.
Right.
Whether we, to me, the question is, can we strike some of these entries and use them still as part of the assessment process and hiring?
Okay. So can we strike use of lawful products while not at work?
Mm-hmm.
Can that be a hiring decision? And
I think the question is, do we have to have it this way, or could we strike any number of these things?
Yeah, agreed.
Later would be the discussion of whether we want to do that with the board. The board hasn't agreed this, they'd want to strike these things. It's I think Sean's question is, could we? And then the conversation would ensue that whether we were going to or not.
right, yes. So I'm asking her if it's possible to do that.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So so we're asking about any of them, or just that one in specific, or any?
I would, for me personally, my question would be pertaining to the use of lawful products while not at work.
Credit history?
Yeah, potentially credit history, unfavorable discharge from the military, arrest record. There was one more. Order of protection status was the other one.
Okay.
Those,
Do we have
those
that?
are the four that I had questions about.
Okay.
So then we can run that past Cindy and she
Yep.
can weigh in. I think it is all based on state law, but
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure. Okay. On to future agenda items. Changing the name of Columbus Day, press policy updates, final reading of policies from the committee of the whole meeting. And those are listed on there. I'm not going to read them, but they're listed on the agenda. And then does anybody have anything else they'd like to add for next time? For a discussion item or an agenda item? Well, if you do, you can always email me. Okay. On to the superintendent report.
Okay. Well, we got a thank you from the Lindenhurst Police Department for our donation of hand sanitizer. You maybe didn't know we donated hand sanitizer, but we did. We happened to get an order in over spring break, I believe. It finally came. We ordered it before school was out. So we have some extras, and anticipating that we likely won't be coming back to school this year. They need it now. So we let them have some of it. So they were very thankful. So Chief Jones gave us a very nice note. So I appreciate that. We also donated some wipes and sanitizer to the cancer treatment facility that one of our parents works at. So they were very appreciative of that. We don't have some of the other protective gear that high schools would have, like the masks and the face shields, but we'll give what we can to help the cause. So that was good. What else?
Do we have a 3D printer? Because I've heard some schools printing out face shields and equipment like that.
We don't. That'd be cool. Well, I mentioned the COGFA report. Don't want to belabor that too much. Wrote a letter to our Congress people asking for some temporary relief for some of the special ed timelines that we're needing to meet. Some of our assessment for qualifying students with special needs for an IEP, that is very difficult to do remotely. Sometimes we're doing that with students we've never met. That can get a little tricky. So we're asking for a list of different things, not permanently, just to back them off while we're remotely doing school. So it's a big challenge. I'd say we've had a lot of conversation about how to meet the needs of special ed students at this time, and Elizabeth's done a great job with that and keeping us up to date, but that is a very, very big challenge. So I appreciate all the work that our teachers are doing in that arena. And I think that's about it. We're gonna keep going on our learning. We're on day 6 of our remote learning plan, and we're bigger and better every week, I hope. Our expectation by the end of this week is that every elementary classroom teacher have at least one Zoom session or similar session with their students to check in. I think that face-to-face has been pointed out by some of our parent comments even before the meeting today prior to this is huge, and been able to see that. So that's very, very important for kids to see their teacher, see their face, know that they're okay. It's a good thing to do, very good thing to do for the social emotional, even if it's a 10-minute just, hey, how you doing? Hey, let's get together kind of thing, show and tell. It's not a waste of time. Zoom for learning, instructionally for elementary and primary grades, not so good. The feedback we're getting from other schools and research, that's not the best use of time necessarily. But it's so important for that face-to-face emotional time, social emotional experience to check in. So we will continue to do that. I think that's it for my report for now.
Okay. Anybody, any further questions for Jason?
I don't know if this is the most relevant time, but just out of curiosity, if we don't end up going back this year, has there been any talk about any sort of year-end assessment at all?
It wouldn't be year end, it would be when they come back. We could give them something online, but the validity of that might be a little suspect, but we could try. And it looks different with younger kids. Younger kids, it's more of a hands-on. The teachers, a student will read a passage and the teachers will score exactly what the child is reading. You could sort of do that if a parent was with them on Zoom, but that would be, might be awfully time consuming and challenging too. So we'd probably wait till kids get back
Okay.
because we want to know what they know next year when they're starting anyway. We kids lose over the summer naturally, and we don't want to. We want to have the most accurate picture. So we would jump on that right away. That'll be my biggest challenge.
What about just for, the parents and stuff? Is there like a list of just the actual milestones from a teacher's perspective that each student in each grade level should be attaining these last couple of months?
That would be nice. We can ask. I will put that on my list.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for Dr. Lind? Okay. On to the business office report. Dr. Johns.
Okay, I have a written report for you at the next meeting, but the one thing I want to mention, because it may actually end up having to be on the agenda for the next meeting, is we'll need to amend our food service contract to allow for the grab and go meals. So once I get more details on that and more information, I'll shoot that out to you. I just got an email today saying that we needed to submit our amendment. So I've got to figure out what that looks like first, and then I'll share with the board what that is.
Any questions for Steve right now? Okay. On to board reports. Anyone? Okay, I have a couple of things. I just want to give a heartfelt thank you to all of the teachers and all of our administrators, all of our staff, all of our support staff. Thank you so much for working tirelessly. I don't know if people know how little a lot of you have slept over the last couple of weeks, but we are all very grateful for everything that you're doing. I've been attending some meetings with the IASB. They're having Zoom meetings about how to cope as a school board member and giving us little tips about meetings and ways that we can be supportive to the staff right now. And you should be getting those invites from IASB, and if you'd like to be on them, feel free. They're on Fridays, and I go to every one. I've also been trying to connect with all of you at least once a week, just to see what you're thinking and see if there's anything you'd like for me to ask Jason. One of the things I suggested is that the board president sort of be the go-to for questions until we get past this time, because so much of what's going on with the crisis is operational. So a lot of it's falling on him. So it just helps for there to be one gateway of questioning and information. But that obviously doesn't have to be the case, of course. The other thing is that for the delegate assembly, the ISB is asking for submissions. And I have a couple that I've been working on for some time with Jason. Jason's helped me with it. Which one is the mandate price tag, that their
Mhm.
a price tag put on any mandate to public schools, because a lot of times all of the our representatives see is the cost to the state. And a lot of these don't have a direct cost to the state, but they have a huge cost to the school districts. So they could have that information before voting on it. The other thing was advocating for the Illinois State Board of Education to revamp the financial profile so that it's more accurate and more reflective of the school district's actual financial standing. So I will send those all to you before I submit them, of course, to ask for feedback. And that's all I have. Does anybody else have a board report?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we're still going ahead planning for staff appreciation. It may look completely different this year, not the usual way, but we're still meeting via Zoom and trying to get that coordinated. And I don't know if you'd want to do that now, discussing the retirement gifts for staff members. Or if you'd like to hold off on that at this time, but I do think we need to make a decision on that because we don't know what all retiring staff members' plans are, and they may be moving, between now and when we can actually get together. So I just wanted to get some direction on if you'd like to do that now with that, or if you'd like to hold off on that.
I think we could do it now. But
Okay, so the thought that we've come up with for our staff members that are retiring, since they will be giving up their school device, we'd like to provide them with an iPad so they can, kind of continue on with education and communication. So we were thinking that that would be a really great gift moving forward if we always had that as kind of our standard for our retiring staff, that they would receive an iPad from the district. So, when they're turning theirs in, they can have a replacement. So it looks like it would probably be around, I guess if there's any staff members retiring watching, they should close their ears right now. But so it looks like it would be about $350 or less. We found some deals in some other places for less than $350. But and this year it would be 4 staff members that would be up for that. So just wondering if anyone thinks that's a good idea, or if they'd like to look towards something else, or anyone.
I think it sounds great. I mean, I would guess you wouldn't even mention it if you hadn't already gotten some feedback.
Yeah.
some direction.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely. I think it's also kind of an invitation as they're leaving to stay connected. So
I agree.
Okay. Does anybody have issue with that, or? All right. I think you have your direction.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Are there other board reports? All right, last call. Okay. So what we're going to do for people who are watching on YouTube is we're going to adjourn into closed session where we talk about things that are private under the HIPAA law. And when we will come back, but if you don't want to be really bored, we're all going to come back, and all we're going to say is, I'd like to move that we adjourn, and we're going to say aye, and then we're going to leave. So this is effectively the end of the public meeting as far as, there being anything interesting. So with that, I'd like to move that we adjourn to closed session for the purpose of
Second.
collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Second,
Second,
Roll call, please, Veronica. Oh, Veronica, we need a roll call to
I'm
go.
sorry, Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Guziak,
Yes.
Ms. Ide,
yes.
Mr. Murphy,
yes.
Ms. Ori,
Yes.
Ms. Caswell Latourette.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. We are adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everyone who came and watched.
Board, I'm gonna send you a separate invite in just a second for another Zoom. It'll be closed session 4:13.
Okay,
Okay.
Sure.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.